So here we are in a car park in Elviria, which is just to the east of Marbella. And I'm going to be showing Alfredo and you around the area here today. We're going to start off down at the beach. I'm going to get some sand in Alfredo's toes, even though he doesn't know it yet, and he'll be kicking and screaming about not doing it. Then we're going to go and have a look at little commercial areas, some properties along the way. We're going to head up towards the golf course, have a look at the views, and then we're going to go all the way up to the top of the hill, which is La Mairena, which some of you may have heard of. And we're going to take a look at the views and what's going on up there. And then we'll roll back down the hill. Welcome to Elviria.
Thank you. So where is Elviria?
What are we doing?
No, where are we in relation to Marbella?
So we are east of Marbella. We're about 10 kilometers, just past the sign that said 10 kilometers. So we're 10 kilometers from Marbella Centre, heading towards Fuengirola and then the airport. And East Marbella is very popular. This whole area, Elviria, Los Monteros, El Rosario, it's very popular because the beaches are really good. And the Costa del Sol, let's be honest, it's not known for its amazing sandy beaches. It's not quite the Caribbean. But Elviria is an area that grew up about 20 years ago. When I first came over here 21 years ago, this was where I laid my hat because it ticked so many boxes. And what I do now is, if I have a client who doesn't know the area particularly well, I actually, the first place I take them to is the beach. Because very often I drag them to the beach. They go, oh, why the hell are we going? We want to go and see properties. That's what we're here for. No, you've got to go and see the beach because the beach here is very good. And I've had a lot of American clients who have explored this area. And when they get onto the sand, they say, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. This is just like San Diego or wherever they feel comfortable with in Southern California. So we're heading down to one part of the beach. I mean, obviously along all of these beaches, you've got various little kind of inlets that let you down. This one we're going to is where the restaurant called the Beach House is, which is very well known. And I remember I think it was the first spring or the first autumn I was here. And myself and my partner, we went and had lunch at the Beach House. And in those days, it was quite a classy little joint. I'm not saying it isn't now, but it was nice. We felt we were very privileged to be able to have a little lunch there. It was very quiet. And we saw dolphins, a pod of dolphins, flying through the air and into the sea just off the coast. And it was really magical, actually. You know, one of those moments that you think, wow, this is like a dream come true. So that's my first memory of this place. But I'm going to pretend you're a client and I'm going to take you down to the beach, take you onto the sand, get a bit of sand in your toes and see what you think. Okay, so here we are parked up in the car park of the Beach House restaurant. So yeah, not the best place. And as I say, when I bring clients here, they kind of go, oh, really? You know, do we have to get out the car? Do we have to go onto the beach? Do we have to get sand in our toes? Yes, you do. Come on. I haven't been here for a while, I've got to say, and I've seen a few things on Facebook with this place which have put me off. I'll be honest with you. You know, where they get like entertainment and they all have a sing-along and then they do the white napkins. That's not me. I know it is a lot of people and I'm sure you can have a great time. I think a lot of alcohol might be involved. And considering I don't drink, it probably isn't for me. But I'm sure that's not every day. Yeah, well, I'm hoping it's not every day. There are like proper chiringuitos and Spanish places and fish places, and also there's Nikki Beach, which is world famous. You know, if you want a glamorous day out with the pool and the beach and the champagne and yeah. So everything's here. It's really interesting actually because I haven't been here for quite some time. You can tell I don't get out much. And we have salespeople who cover this area for us now, which is great because it's about a half-hour trek from where I live now. But it is nice to be back. You know, Elviria ticks a lot of boxes, and just coming here, it does remind me of 20 years ago when I first rocked up here. Yeah, it still looks nice. It's. Do you know what? I can always tell with a place if they've got cloth napkins and tablecloths, you're onto a winner. And a lot of beach bars don't, because it's a quick, like, you know, put the paper towels down and the paper cloths and all that sort of thing. So this is Elviria Beach, or part of it. There's lots of different segments. There's a yoga, I think it's a yoga class going on here. So we'll try not to interrupt them too much. But come on, Alfredo, we're going onto the sand. So yeah, this is what it's all about, really. And then when a client comes here and they take a look around, yeah, you understand why I've dragged you kicking and screaming down to the beach, down to the sand, because this is what it's all about. This is part of the lifestyle. This is what you're going to be doing. Maybe this time of day you'll be walking up and down here, or doing a yoga class, or walking the dog, or just coming here and contemplating, or coming for lunch or dinner here. Just to give you some perspective, as we head west, you'll see a tower block, which is actually the big tower block of Torre Real, Rio Real. And then the white buildings on the coast, that's the town of Marbella. And then it goes very green all of a sudden, that's the Golden Mile. And then you hit Puerto Banús, and then it goes on into the haze, you'll find Estepona. On a very clear day, you'll see Gibraltar and Africa behind me. And if you're lucky, a few dolphins. And then this way just heads east, really, down towards Mijas Costa, La Cala, Fuengirola, Benalmádena, Torremolinos, Malaga. But there's some lovely developments beachside here in Elviria. I mean, to find something on the beach, literally front line, is difficult, because the stock is either very old, because it was originally, you know, it was one of the original places they was built, or hideously expensive. But there's some great developments. This one behind us here, the red buildings, is one of my favorites. It's an older development. It's probably about 30 years old, 20, 30 years old, called Cerrado de Elviria. They wouldn't design this like that now, because they've got so much land with tennis court and pool and stuff like that. And it's just a very beautiful, spacious development. And there's normally 1 or 2 apartments available in there. And then there's developments like that dotted along the coastline here. You can see the tower of the Don Carlos Hotel, which is the 5-star hotel here. So you've got Don Carlos, you've got Nikki Beach, you've got various facilities on the beach itself. So Elviria is 10 kilometers east of Marbella Center, and it's about, I don't know, 25, 30 kilometers to Fuengirola the other way. But you've also got some great places even closer than that. Elviria has a wealth of amenities and facilities on its doorstep. So it has 3 commercial centers. It also has an 18-hole golf course. But if you head westwards to Marbella, you come across El Rosario, which has shops and supermarkets. You've also got Los Monteros. You've got various 5-star hotels dotted along the way until you get to Marbella. And then the other way, you've got Cabapino, Hacienda Las Chapas, and then into Mijas Costa. So it's a really handy place. You're about 45 minutes from Malaga International Airport. So easy access. And actually, it's one of those few places on the coast where you can pitch up here without a car and be quite happy for a couple of weeks, because you've got lots of things you can do on your doorstep. You've got access to buses and taxis to take you into Marbella, Puerto Banús. So yeah, it's a great spot for permanent living, semi-permanent living, holidays. You've got the hospital, the local Costa del Sol hospital on your doorstep. You've also got lots of good international schools. The German school and the English International College for the coast are literally 5 minutes away. So it ticks a lot of boxes for a lot of people.
We're just heading back from the beach house, and on the left there's a new development called Estrella del Mar. So this area, you know, with all the Marbella town hall licensing issues, there was nothing really new that was built here in the last 10 to 15 years. So it's nice now to see some new developments coming on stream, because the problem with Elviria has always been that the stock now is becoming a little bit dated.
You know, so if you buy somewhere down here, for instance, you're going to get an amazing location, but you're also going to have a property that probably needs a new bathroom, new kitchens, you know, things like that, which some people just don't want to do. But of course, most of the good plots, building plots, have already been taken by developers. So if you want something new, you tend to have to go back into the hills. It's one of those compromise things, isn't it? You can't have everything.
And what sort of properties does one get in Elviria? What sort of choice? Is it predominantly apartments or houses? Or
yeah, beachside, it's mainly apartments and penthouses. So like you can see around us here, purely because provides the best yield for developers over the years. There are a few beachfront villas, which are the old, quaint little cottage style villas. But it's mainly apartments and penthouses. I sold a lot of properties in this development on the right hand side here, which is Jardines Don Carlos. So it's named after the hotel. Here you're not really buying for views, but you're buying for location, because you can walk obviously to the beach, and you can walk to all the commercial facilities that you find around you. So just coming up to another area here, if you actually go down to the right hand side here, you'll come across another part of the beach with, again, different restaurants. But here are all the popular beachside developments. This is Las Golondrinas. You've got Hacienda Playa just beyond the Don Carlos Hotel in front of us. To the left, you've got the Alanda Club, which was the timeshare resort where you can now buy freehold units. So Nikki Beach is also down here. Don Carlos is closed just for a couple of months over the winter, which is when they normally do their refurbishment work and making sure that it's ready for the spring season.
And what sort of prices are you looking at around here?
You're looking for a 2-bed apartment, probably 450,000 plus euros. There's not going to be a lot for less than that. Again, if there is, then it likely needs a bit of work. On the left-hand side, you'll see a little commercial area where you've got a few restaurants, hairdressers, doctors' surgeries, gift shops, pharmacy. So a few things to walk out to. And then the other side of the road, if we just cross over the highway here, you'll find 2 more commercial centres, which is great. So Elviria is one of those few places along the coast that you've got the beach, you've got commercial facilities, you've got a golf course, you've got quite a lot of things all here.
So is this more of a family destination or
well, I think the interesting thing is that it suits people living here year round as well as holidays, and it's families, couples. You know, there's plenty of things to do. It's not big kind of nightclub land. It's not package holiday resort. It's more of a second home area. So I think you'll find that the things that are here are catered for that. So there's lots, for instance, here we've got a pizza restaurant, we've got a Chinese and Japanese, we've got a 7-Eleven supermarket, we have got a furniture shop, then we've got a gourmet catering shop, we've got a couple of bars around the corner, a couple more restaurants. So here there's even in this little commercial area, which is the newest one in Elviria, this is probably about 15 years old. There's plenty of things to keep you entertained. And then we'll nip over to the other one, which was the original commercial centre of Elviria, and that's got even more shops, bars, restaurants, banks, supermarkets. So there is enough here to keep you entertained for a week or two's holiday. You could have the odd day trip to Marbella, Puerto Banús, and some people actually learn that they don't even need a car here. You know, they just get a taxi from the airport or the bus from the airport or whatever, get plonked here, and they're quite happy for a couple of weeks, you know.
Gotcha. Just as a point of comparison, this sort of location and these sort of properties on the west side of Marbella Center, so basically Golden Mile up to Puerto Banús, what sort of comparative pricing would you think?
Well, it's difficult to say because obviously you've got to be comparing apples with apples. I would say probably 25-30% more expensive on the Golden Mile than it is here. This is the original commercial centre. This hardware store here on the right is the best on the coast. It just sells everything. Oh, there's a new agency. Never heard of them before. Oh, I've had some drunken nights in Cassie, which is a little bar here on the right.
Cassie, that means...
What does that mean?
That means almost.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Basically almost. I need to say it twice.
Okay, so yeah, I've had some drunken nights in there. That's one of the reasons I stopped drinking. Jesus. But yeah, it's a nice little selection of things here, and it goes on and extends to the area in front of us with more restaurants and bars. Got a big Supersol, or Carrefour as it is now, because they've taken over all the Supersol, haven't they? Big Carrefour supermarket. And also in this little car park, there's a taxi rank. Bus stop is nearby. So if you just fancy, you know, a day trip or a morning out somewhere, you've got the options both ways.
And you said there's also, is it one golf course nearby or several?
Yeah. Well, you've got several nearby. I mean, you've got several within 5 to 10 minutes drive. I would say you've probably got 6 or 7 within easy striking distance. But there is one, we'll go there now, which is Santa Maria Golf, which is in Elviria itself, which has got a good reputation, nice clubhouse, and a lot of property development around that.
And this property per square meter get cheaper the further inland you go, like it typically is the case?
Yeah, normally it does. Unless it's a very high spec development, in which case obviously the price per square meter doesn't necessarily reflect the space, it more reflects the style.
There's a bit of greenery going on.
Exactly, yeah. A lot of this is protected. So because Elviria is part of Marbella, they haven't gone overboard with development.
He says, as a crane in a building site on the left.
Yeah, absolutely massive building site here on the left-hand side. So that's a new development going up. But honestly, for the last 15, 20 years, we've hardly had anything.
La Vera, this one that they're building.
Yeah, La Vera. And then we've got in front of us Hacienda Elviria, which is a very popular development. Not really any views from there, but you're buying for location because you've got a nice flat walk down to the commercial facilities and the beach. I'm just taking a slight detour here to show you the golf area, because I think Elviria you can quite clearly define into 3 areas really. You've got the beach side with the commercial facilities, then you've got the sort of the midland area where you've got the golf going up the hill, and then at the top of the hill you've got La Mairena. So I think you've got distinct areas there, and the nice thing is they each offer something slightly different for different types of buyers. So if you like Elviria, and that's why I take people down to the beach at the start of a tour, because if you like the setup and you like the look of the amenities, there's probably something for you here. You know, whether it's at the top of the mountain or the bottom or the beach, or there'll be something. If we can get the price right, there'll be something for you. So this is a nice area. We've got a development called El Manantial, which is very popular, with huge grounds. We sold a property there last month. This is Los Patios, which is has probably the smallest apartments in Santa Maria, in Elviria. It's right next door to the clubhouse, which is in front of us here. And again, walking distance to the amenities that we've just seen.
This is the clubhouse of
Santa Maria, yeah. And you've got tennis and paddle courts and various things. So this is Elviria. This is kind of the heart of it. This is Villa Country. So there's still a few plots available, but the problem is because it's part of Marbella, it's not easy to get planning on these plots unless it's already kind of in place. So you can be waiting for 12 months, 2 years to be able to build a house. So that's why it can be a bit of a long process, and why a lot of people are drawn to other areas if they decide to do a self-build. Terrazas de Santa Maria. I wanted to buy in here when I first moved to Spain. It was just a bit too expensive. But looking back now, it's like, oh my God, how cheap? And the developers were really nervous about releasing it because it was all east and southeast facing. And they sold it like in record time. It was really, really successful. And then this is a development called Los Lagos de Santa Maria Golf.
So this is all surrounding the golf course?
Yeah, this is all, all part of the Santa Maria kind of experience.
So here we are in kind of the middle reaches of Elviria. So behind me you can see the golf course stretching down to the lovely clubhouse, overlooking the lake there. On the coast itself you'll see two fairly high-rise buildings. The one on your right is the Don Carlos Hotel, the 5-star hotel, and below that we have Nikki Beach. But this is the area where if you want a little bit more land coming away from the coast, you get it here. So price per square meter is better. You get the views because you're elevated, but the downside is that you need to get in the car because it's a bit of a walk. Well, you might walk down to the facilities, but you probably wouldn't want to walk back up. But Santa Maria Golf, 18-hole golf course, which snakes its way up the hillside up to, well, just before the top of the hill, which is La Mairena, which we're going to go to in a little while. This area to your right-hand side here, that's the development I mentioned, which is the Las Terrazas de Santa Maria. That was the first one that was developed on this golf course, and they were very nervous because it faced east, and they were thinking, oh my God, will anyone buy this? And it sold out in record time, and it was a really lovely development. I wish I'd bought there when I first came to Spain. But no, it's a great area. You've got everything, as I say, everything on your doorstep. It ticks a lot of boxes. The only thing that you have to be careful of is that just over there, just beyond that little hill, is a sewage treatment plant. And a lot of agents will kind of just gloss over it or won't even mention it, but you need to know about it. It used to be the case 20 years ago when I arrived that, you know, you would notice it, even just the smell on a hot summer's day, and that's the last thing you want when you wake up in the morning and you're putting your coffee on, is that waft of that smell coming across. In fairness, they've done a huge amount of work on the treatment plant itself to make sure that the smells aren't that bad. But once or twice a year, you will get a waft of exactly. So you just need to be careful as to if you're buying somewhere near here, for instance. You just need to, well, you need to know about it. You need to be shown it, so you're aware that it's there. But you just need to take a view after that as to whether it's going to interfere or not. As I say, things have improved greatly with it over the years, so it hasn't become too much of an issue. But if you're on top of it or next to it, it's something to bear in mind.
I mean, I can't smell a thing, but I've got long COVID. No. Everything smells of petrol.
No, it doesn't really smell bad at all. So good.
No.
It's not as bad as I feared when you first mentioned it.
So this is the little industrial area of Elviria, which no one will ever get to see really. CrossFit. Do you stop for a CrossFit session? This is Las Jardines de Santa Maria. This is one of the most successful developments in this area.
Okay.
2 and 3 bed apartments, lovely gardens, hence the name. And here you can see how close we are to the Don Carlos. Here it is walking distance to things, but you're a little bit set back. You're not beachside, but you're still in a pretty good location.
And that's this on the right.
That's one on the right.
And this is what we got, like 2 or 3 story kind of townhousey looking things.
Well, they're apartments, so ground floor, first floor, and penthouse. Prices starting from about 320, something like that. Orientations. So it depends on where you're from. So a lot of our Northern Europeans like the idea of being west facing or southwest facing because they have this romantic notion of having a gin and tonic on the terrace while the sun goes down, and that is lovely. That is really super great idea, but not in July and August, because July and August in a Mediterranean climate on say an open terrace that's west facing, you are going to get burned alive in the afternoon. I don't know if you have
I totally agree. In July and August, the last place you want to do is catch afternoon sun because it'll melt you.
Yeah, so I've got clients who have bought west-facing units and they have to close all the curtains in the lounge, you know, onto the terrace because the sun is just too strong and you can't actually use it, you know. So I'm always very honest with people and say, look, just bear that in mind. It depends on when you're going to use it, how you're going to use it, whether you're sun worshippers, whether you're not, and whether you're real sun worshippers, you know, because there's a difference between, you know, 18 degrees, lovely winter sunshine, and 40 degrees summer sunshine. A lot of the Spanish, they tend to like the cooler orientation, so they'll go east or maybe even northeast, so they get the nice morning sun, gets them into the day, but then they don't want it in the afternoons. So it just depends on, as I say, what you're used to, where you're from, what you're after.
But generally, in terms of pricing here, just here extended for foreign buyers, the value is enhanced if it's southwest facing.
There's normally a slight premium. So the way that they price these will be orientation, views, size, specification. Yeah, and that's how they tend to price. So normally, like in the UK, for instance, if you go up in a block, you'll pay a little bit more for each floor. Having said that, if you've got a garden apartment which has a private garden, sometimes you could end up paying more for that than an upper floor, and it will depend on views and orientation. So something that is southwest facing will be more valuable than something that's north facing. I want to show you this development because it's very well known. This is called Elviria Hills.
On the right here?
On the right, yeah. It's a big development. It was built by Green Life probably 20 years ago, I would say, because it was being built when I came over here 21 years ago. And the concept at the time was quite unique in that it was built, it's apartments and penthouses, but it was built around a 9-hole golf course. And it's a nice 9-hole golf course. It's not a Mickey Mouse pitch and putt. It's a proper golf course. And also what they did was they put a very nice restaurant in the clubhouse, which in the daytime is a snack bar, nice place to have a golfer's lunch. But in the evening, it's actually a Michelin star restaurant. So it's nice for a lot of people to have that on site if they want it.
And this is where we are right now.
This is exactly where we are. Yeah.
And it's called
Elviria Hills. So prices in here probably about 350,000 plus. Again, depending on the views, orientation, all those sorts of things. And the restaurant on in the clubhouse is called El Lago because it's based around this lovely lake on the golf course. But this is a nice spot. I've played golf here a few times actually. This is Elviria Hills. This is the kind of heart of the action here, the lake from which the restaurant gets its name, El Lago. And this is, I'm trying to remember actually, yeah, there's a few holes dotted. And here, if you want to be here, then you can take your pick really, 2- and 3-bed apartments and penthouses. Some of them have got golf views, lake views, hello, sea views, and it just depends on what you want and how much you want to spend really. But it's a really solid development. That's a turkey, isn't it?
I don't think so.
It's got a turkey neck like me. Anyway, you weren't expecting that. That's a Brucey bonus, isn't it? Having a few, whatever they are, ducks in the mix. But yeah, so it's just a nice place to be. Again, you've got all the facilities of Elviria 5 minutes away in the car. The main golf, the Santa Maria golf course just over the way. So it's a nice residential complex with a few facilities on site, and again, it ticks a lot of boxes. We are off to the upper reaches of Elviria, which is a little area called La Mairena, which I think you're familiar with anyway, aren't you?
Yeah, I did a little behind the scenes up there.
So as I say, there's 3 main areas that I think you can distinctly divide Elviria into. The first one is the beach side, where you've got the shops, bars, restaurants, the hotel, the lovely beaches. Then you've got this middle section, is what I call it, which is very residential, a mixture of apartments and villas. And then you go up the hill right to the top, 400 meters above sea level, and you've got La Mairena. And from there you get some of the very best views of the whole coastline. So if you love a view, that is a great place to. And
that's about 5-6 kilometers above.
Yeah,
sort of the
it's normally it's about 7 or 8 minutes up the hill and 6 or 7 on the way down, a little bit quicker. And the first time you drive it, you're kind of like, ooh, this feels a long way because there's no landmarks. It's not like driving through Nueva Andalusia up to La Quinta, which is the same kind of distance, because there's lots to look at, lots to pick out, lots to talk about.
With this, it's different because you're just driving through countryside. So the first time you do it, you do feel a little bit, ooh. And it's true, you know, this, I used to live in La Mairena. When I first came to Spain, that's where I chose to live. And I loved it, but there are some compromises that you have to make, normally about practicalities, day-to-day things like, you know, where you do your shopping and going out. If you drink, you know, you've got to think about taxis and stuff like that. So there's those things to consider. But if you love a view and you love that peace and quiet and surrounded by nature, then it's amazing, absolutely amazing.
I mean, we'll see in a second, but having been there recently, considering it's 6 kilometers away from all the action, it does feel like you're an hour away from the action. You know, it does feel like it is very, very remote, and it's kind of hard to believe that you are only less than 10 minutes away from shops and everything else.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and yeah, it's not everyone's cup of tea. And I you know, if people say to us, look, we want a view, we want this, we want that, then what we normally do is when we're at the bottom of the hill, we'll have a coffee and we'll talk about it and we'll show them where it is. And if the client then says, yes, I want to see it, then you've kind of covered that initial objection straight away. What you can't really afford to do is to bring a client up here who has no idea where they want to be and bring them to the top of a hill without checking first that it's okay with them, because it is something you have to think about.
I suppose that applies to anywhere on the coast now.
Yeah, it does actually. I mean, the interesting thing is we get a lot of inquiries of people who want to be inland, and their idea of inland is actually La Mairena. What they don't want is inland sort of half an hour away, which is what they think they want. But actually when we show them this is like, oh yeah, this is kind of what we had in mind. So you're right what you say, that it does feel a little bit more isolated than it actually is. It does feel like being in the campo, doesn't it? So La Mairena has kind of got bigger and bigger. You met the owner the other day, Gabriel Massoud, who's a Lebanese businessman, and he bought the whole hillside basically. I think it's about 2 million square meters of land. And the beauty of La Mairena is that you can only develop, I think, 7 or 8%. So a lot of it is left to nature, cork and pine trees. So it has a very natural feel to it. And they have developed most of the area themselves. So I think there's 4 or 5 different apartment developments. There's villas, there's plots for sale. And obviously you can develop your own plot of land if you feel so inclined. But the views are sensational. Most of the good plots and the views are east facing, because that's the view out towards the Bay of Fuengirola and over Mijas Costa. So there's not much facing west or southwest, because that's not the lay of the land really. It's a bit like La Cala Golf, which is the next valley down. They have the same issue, is that a lot of their best views are north and east. So do you build for the views or do you build for the sun? And in most instances they decide to build for the views. There's 2 ways to it. We could have gone that way to the right. We're actually going to go straight up to the heart of La Mairena really. And you know, would you believe that at the top of the hill here we've got the main German school for the coast, Deutsche Schule.
It's been here for a long time, I understand, right?
Yeah, it's very popular. And there's a little Spanish school next door as well. So you know, you'll see at certain times of the day the 4 or 5 coachloads of kids coming down the mountain or going up the mountain. And you know, it is lovely up here. It's a slightly different way of life. You feel part of a very special community, but because there's not as much footfall, because there's not as much infrastructure, you do feel that you're in quite a privileged little place.
So here we're arriving into
this is La Mairena, yeah. So the interesting thing about La Mairena is, although we've just left Elviria below us, which is part of Marbella, up here we're part of Ogen, which is important because when it comes to planning and getting things done and things built, you've got far more chance of getting it done here than you have down the bottom of the hill.
I think that the plot that the Mairena encompasses is so big that it actually includes like part of Marbella, Ogen and Mijas.
And Mijas, yeah. We're actually at that point where all 3 municipalities meet. So again, if you're thinking of investing in this area, you just need to check out where it is you're investing, whether it's Ogen, Mijas or Marbella. In front of us, we've got Deutsche Schule, Colegio Alemán. And then here, there used to be a fabulous restaurant here. I think it was called Chien Liège years and years ago. Anyone who was in La Mairena at that kind of time, 20 years ago, will remember Chien Liège. It was a beautiful, like a French bistro. That's gone now. There have been various things that have been in, like a pizza restaurant, various things. Never really worked, but this has always worked, the Kudu Bar. I remember I was here when it actually first opened, and it was very exciting because we never had a real bar up here before, and it was just fabulous, you know, really nice place to be. I used to be able to walk to it, which was quite a boon. Next door we've got the Hofsass Tennis Academy. This is an interesting place because the guy, Mr. Hofsass, is the ex-coach of the German Davis Cup team, and he knows all the stars. And when you go into the clubhouse, you'll see pictures of world famous tennis players playing on these courts, and I think they're all named after various people. So there's like Stefan Edberg Court and God knows what. Main sales office for La Mairena itself is here on the right, and then the rest of it now is just developments, land, villas, apartments. This first one here, this white building, is Las Jacarandas.
What are property prices like around here?
You're looking at starting prices between 250 and 300,000 for a 2-bed apartment. You'll tend to get a little bit more for your money up here because the land prices tend to be a little lower. So yeah, prices are definitely at a sweeter spot.
And you can get villas, apartments, all sorts, no?
Yep.
All property types.
Yeah, so villas, depends on the plot and the size, but villas will tend to start at around 1.2 million upwards.
And up here, we're not technically in Elviria though, are we? We're kind of like just above it.
Yeah.
Just greater Elviria.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of agents classify it as Elviria, but actually you're right, it's not.
Someplace.
Yeah, it is. So this is the kind of most easterly point of La Mairena. This is a development called Bougainvilles, and if you carry on down the road to the right, you'll eventually come to La Cala Golf Resort.
Through the back.
Through the back. But I'm going to just take you through here back up to the viewing point so I can explain where everything is, and this gives us an idea of the scope of development actually up here.
Gorgeous.
So we're entering a development called El Soto de Marbella now. And the concept behind this was to have a similar development to Elviria Hills that we saw earlier with the 9-hole golf course and the clubhouse and the lake, and they've replicated that here. Just before we get stuck into it, I'm going to show you what's being developed here on this side of the road. Can without getting Okay, so here we are in El Soto de Marbella, which is part of La Mairena, and I just wanted to show you some of the development that's been going on over the last 10 to 20 years. So the reddy coloured block at the back there is El Vicario Phase 1. Above it you'll see like a square shaped building, that's the German school. And then you've got the original La Mairena area of whitewashed buildings on top of the hillside. Then below El Vicario, you've got La Floresta Sur, which is the Taylor Wimpey development that was completed about 6 or 7 years ago now. El Vicario Phase 2, which are the brown coloured buildings. You've got villas just above those, and then more Taylor Wimpey development going down into the valley. And just to give us some perspective, I don't know if you can pick it out, but in the hillside in the distance, you can see the water tower in Alarin, just on the horizon. And as you swing across, you'll see the campo around La Cala Golf Resort going down towards Mijas Golf, and you'll be able to pick out the village of Mijas, or the town of Mijas, in the hillside. You might not be able to pick it up from this angle, but we can have a look down below. We've just come down a few steps here just to open up this view a little bit, which is what you're up here for, really. In the foreground, middle ground, you've got La Cala Golf. You might be able to see the white apartments there. That's part of La Cala Golf. La Cala Golf has 3 18-hole golf courses. So you've got that one way. You've got 9-hole golf course here. You've got Santa Maria 18 holes as well. So lots of golf around. You might be able to see just on the hillside, the far away whitewashed area, which is Mijas. That's Mijas village. And then the real kind of view, and it's a bit hazy today, is there the Bay of Fuengirola, basically, where you can get all of Mijas Costa, La Cala, Fuengirola, going round to the Torre Quebrada Casino, and on a very clear day you can pick out the snow-capped mountains of the Sierra Nevada beyond Malaga, and you can see the planes coming into Malaga airport. So on a clear day the view here is absolutely amazing. This is the south section of La Mairena, really, El Soto. I remember when this was first built, the diggers came, almost felt like in the middle of the night. We were like, what's going on? And they created this very big resort.
Oh, wow, look at all that terracotta.
I know.
I bet they weren't too pissed off when they had the mud rain. It's like, it probably saved them a paint job, right?
Exactly. But you can see the similarities with Elviria Hills in terms of the concept of the apartments and penthouses in blocks around a 9-hole golf course with a lake and a clubhouse. And it's a popular concept. And these now, for a 2-bed, you're probably looking at around €300,000 entry point. Penthouses, 450, 500,000. Nice clubhouse with restaurant, bar, tennis, paddle, gym.
This is El Soto
de Marbella.
Soto de Marbella.
Yeah.
You got a little lake.
Yeah, a little lake. The golf course isn't as challenging as Elviria Hills, I would say. It's more of a par 3, not a pitch and putt, it's more than that, but it's more of a practice course than a serious thing.
But it's just a few minutes from La Mairena, isn't it? So you wouldn't have to buy in El Soto necessarily if you're a golf enthusiast. You could buy wherever you want in the area. Right?
Exactly. I mean, for some people who buy here, for most people I would say, it's just an add-on. It's just something that's nice to have. Maybe the kids can go and play tennis, or if you can't be bothered going down the hill, you can just even walk to the clubhouse, have a meal, and it just ticks that box that isn't ticked in sort of traditional residential areas up here because you haven't got the range of facilities. So that is, we've just done the loop of El Soto de Marbella, and now we're going to roll back down the hill. It's really interesting here because we do get 320 days sunshine a year, but obviously that means for whatever it is, 40 odd days, it's not so great, and they have to be split across somewhere. And we had a client out recently, for instance, who'd never been here before, very serious client, money in the bank, and he came and it rained for a week. And you get so frustrated because he didn't get a great example of what the place is like most of the time, and he could see through that. I'm not saying that, but it definitely put him off, as it would anyone. If you're looking at stuff in the rain, I mean, oh my God, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, it's going to look a bit miserable. And he's coming back. He said, look, I didn't see it in its fair light, so he's coming back in a couple of weeks. Just hope it doesn't rain again, because you do get some clients, the rain just follows them and you're like, oh my God. Okay, so we are officially on top of the world here. This is behind me, Elviria, and going down towards the coast you can see Capapino, you can see Mijas Costa, and then you can see the two almost like twin towers on the coastline. The one to the right is the Don Carlos 5-star hotel. And then beneath us you can see some of the developments that we've already talked about and visited earlier. We are up here in La Mairena, just about to go down the hill to the coast. So here we are, we're back where we started in Elviria, outside a gourmet shop with the finest wines and delicacies. Right place for us. We've done what we said we were going to do. We've done the beach, we've done the golf, we've done the hillside, we've seen the views, we've seen what's going on, we've seen the pros and the cons of this area and what's happening in Elviria. And yeah, we hope you liked it. I'm a little bit nervous because they always say, don't they, you should never do this sort of stuff with, is it kids and animals? And I've got 4 angry birds. I don't know what they're after. I'm hoping they're after food because I can't provide that. But I'm hoping that I'm not like treading on their eggs or anything. Do they do eggs? Tempted to do your downward dog. Is it downward dog? Is that even a thing?